Humans on the cardboard, welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today we are continuing our small three-part series talking about these underdeveloped types in Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm not talking about the specific types in Yu-Gi-Oh! But we're talking about these like weird little side types of monsters when you're talking about flips. Today we're talking about Gemini. We talked about flips yesterday. Check out that video if that sounds interesting to you. Today we're looking at Gemini and then spirits, hopefully tomorrow, but it depends on, new card releases and all that stuff. But yeah, Geminis, it's no secret. Geminis have fallen behind. I mean, they fell behind a long, long time ago, and they never really got their due diligence in terms of, like, just modern day, like, updated standard cards for them, and it's kind of a shame. They have a couple core cards that, like, really are a nice, like, starting point for them, but it's not enough just yet. So today we're going to be looking at that, and I think before we jump into it, we need to just reference a little bit of Yu-Gi-Oh! History, and I talked about this in the video yesterday. We'll do a much more condensed version in this video. When you looked at fusions and rituals, those just mechanics were just inherently flawed. They took way too many resources just to get one fusion monster on the field. KONAMI has circumvented that with fusions, archetypes like Shaddolls that just are super resource efficient in the way they fusion summon. And with the rituals, you got more just like generic support. We've got the preps, the pre-preps that are just like, can be +1s, but also just insane consistency. Diviner of the Herald is a plus card. Cyber Angel Benten, an insane plus card. And now a new super generic engine in Drytron that helps any ritual deck that really needs it kind of get that extra oomph to make up the value that you have to put into like a big ritual summon. And so it's really cool. I mean, seriously. And there's other examples too, but those are the big ones that I wanted to reference there. So I think the same thing could and probably will happen to Gemini eventually. I think just too many people like look back and just wish Gemini had been better. And I think KONAMI does the same. They had a small place in Yu-Gi-Oh! Before, a couple random cards like Neos Alias that had actually been playable in like competitive formats. And I think eventually KONAMI will come up to Geminis and be like, you know what? Let's give Gemini what they deserve. Let's actually just push them to the limit and see how good we can make them for modern day Yu-Gi-Oh! So let's start off and let's look at some of the cards we already have for Geminis that are just generic and going to apply to a lot of stuff. There's not a ton of Gemini monsters. I don't even think there's 50 Gemini monsters. But there's a couple that are actually interesting. The first one here is Carbo Crab. This card is actually insane. Some of the Chemicritter cards are not too shabby to start. So pretty much, if you don't know the Gemini Mechanic, the flaw in the mechanic is just that you have to like double summon all of them to get their effects. You have to like summon them to the field and then use another way, have another way to summon them to gain their effect. And that's just, it's pretty much just bad monsters, regular monsters. But anyway, you do have the benefit of the monsters counting as normal monsters while they're on field or in the graveyard. So there are some other cards that you can take advantage of for sure. But yeah, Carbo Crab's insane. So once he has his effect reads that during your main phase, you can send a Gemini monster from deck to grave, then add a Gemini monster from deck to hand. So this is a Stratos plus a Foolish Burial at the same time. That is actually pretty insane. I'm not even going to lie. He's also a level 2 Aqua, which means I believe he can actually, 2 of this guy can make totally awesome, potentially. That could be something. Next up, you have Gemini's Lord Gold Knight. This card's actually pretty new. I think this card came out a couple sets ago, but it is pretty decent. When he gains his effect, he can do, he gains these effects. So if this card is normal or special summon, so that would be his additional normal summon, you can add one spell or trap from your deck to your hand that has Gemini monster in its text. That is a lot of different cards. There's not a ton of amazing ones, but there are a couple that are actually pretty cool. So he searches any of the spell traps. Cool. Now we've already got a monster that is essentially searching any of your monsters and dumping them, and a card that searches any of your spell traps. He also gains 500 and becomes a machine. So it will be 2,000 attack as well. Not too shabby. Then you move to a couple other ones. Blazewing Butterfly. It can, or Butterfly. It can tribute itself to target a Gemini Engrave, reborn it, and it becomes an effect monster, which is really cool. That's one of those things you're going to see here is a lot of the bonus Gemini effects with like the extenders and generic cards they have are like just summoning a Gemini back is not enough in my opinion. It has to be something like this. You're summoning a Gemini back and it gains its effects immediately. That's what we need to abuse in Gemini is like just Push them to the limit. Don't just summon stuff. Not like, what if we got an E-Tele for Geminis, but it didn't just summon them out, it summoned them out and gave them their effects. That would be so huge, because it means you would just summon out Carbo Crab, and now you can do it without your normal summon. You summon out Goal Knight, search a spell trap, and you haven't used your normal summon. That is really, really huge. So, yeah, Butterfly, good example of that, although I don't know how truly good this card would be. You also have Avec. This is kind of just like a worse Butterfly, but the thing with this card is you don't have to get this card off the field. This guy can just target, when he's normal or special summon, target a Fire Warrior or a Gemini Engrave and just summon it back. Doesn't make it an effect monster, but you don't have to lose him off the field, so you could potentially make rank 4 plays or just link climb easier with this guy. Not amazing, but like a decent card. You have stuff like Catalyst Field. It lets you normal summon a level 5 or higher Gemini without tributing, and then it gives you an additional normal summon for a Gemini each turn. Really good. That's what Geminis need. And once per turn, you can like pop an opponent's monster by banishing a Gemini you control until the end of the turn, or until your opponent's end turn, which is pretty cool. You know, gives you a little bit of removal, gives you those extra normal summons, but it doesn't actually plus you in any way. That's like the iffy part about a lot of the Gemini cards. Dimer Synthesis, this is actually another recent card. It's a search card. It can either add Catalyst Field or it can add Burnout. It's like a mediocre trap for Chemic Critters plus a Chemic Critter monster. So technically this is a card that can search something like Carbo Crab or Catalyst Field. You know, pretty cool. Gemini Ablation. This to me is like one of the most spicy Gemini cards we have right now. So this card reads, during the main phase, it's a continuous trap, by the way, you can discard a card, then do one of these 2 effects. Summon a Gemini from deck as an effect monster with its effects, or tribute a Gemini you control to summon a Fire Warrior from hand or deck. Then, if you tributed a Gemini that was an effect monster already, you can then also destroy a card on the field non-targeting. This card's kind of crazy. And one of the things that Geminis are definitely missing, we'll get to this a little more in depth, is that there are like no Gemini monsters that have an actual interruption effect. Like literally none. There's a couple that have like okay removal effects, no disruption whatsoever. So imagine being able to just like, as long as our deck can consistently get to this card, you know, just discard a card, summon a pretty powerful interruptive Gemini from the deck with its effects, and ride that. Or tribute a Gemini to get a Fire Warrior, you know, potentially play like the Gearfried, the guy that plays with the equips, and then also pop a card. There's definitely something workable with this card. It has Gemini in the name, it has Gemini monster in the text. This card's actually already, you know, decently searchable. So very cool. Gemini Spark, really cool card, quick play, target a level 4. I don't know why it's level 4 specifically, but there are, I mean, look at the 4 cards we listed here. Not level 4, but 1, 2, 3 out of the 4 were all level 4. So target a face-up level 4 Gemini and a card on the field, destroy it, or tribute a level 4 Gemini, pop a card on the field, and if you do, draw a card. So at least you get a drawback off of it, which is pretty cool. You do lose a Gemini on field, though, so, you know, hit or miss. But it has Gemini monster in the text, so it is searchable. And Supervise, probably the last card to look at. I don't love equips like this, but the fact that this then gives a monster an effect, but that's not enough for Gemini. We can't just have cards that give effects because they're essentially just -1s. You're using 2 cards just to make your monster have an effect. This card gives a monster an effect, and then when this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, it reborns a normal monster. So any Gemini that's engraved will be able to just get reborned back to the field, which is pretty nice. So it does have that extra extension effect. I do think that makes this card a little more interesting, but unless they build specifically around it, I do think I'd rather have just better Gemini support in general, more powerful stuff. Like the fact that Geminis need like 2 cards to get going kind of puts me in a state where I'm like, we kind of just need cards that are crazy. Cards that are +1s, +2s to make up for the fact that Geminis are like inherently minuses. But we'll see. So, like, there's definitely a couple routes they could go about all this stuff. I think one of them could be something like a Link 1. Like, what if there's a Link 1 that takes any Gemini, right? And then when it's Link summoned, you can special summon. Like, I don't know. There's really so many ways they go about it. But, like, if they want to make it insane, summon a Gemini from deck with its effects. Absolutely busted, but Geminis need something absolutely busted. And a card like that would turn even just like a Gemini you can't even get online into an actual play starter, you know? So that could be something, but it, you know, would be busted. We'd still need an actual monster that has a disruption effect, you know, to get that going. But yeah, you do. It's just tough. Or they just need to, like I said, go off and just make new Gemini cards that are +1s, +2s, and those are insane. But really, the downside is that they're kind of just making up for what Gemini monsters just already can't do on their own. Because there's not a ton of Gemini monsters, and there's only a few good ones. We really need them to expand on that. It's just not enough. It hasn't been enough yet. And Geminis are so cool. Like, the fact that they can take advantage of like normal monster support is really crazy. There's a handful of cards that like actually become crazy, given the fact that you might be playing with normal monsters on the field and in Grave pretty frequently, which is really cool. So I don't know. You just have to mess around with it. Hopefully Konami gives us this new archetype and it ends up being something that maybe it's just a generic Gemini archetype, but it just has like generic cards that work with other Gemini cards. It can take advantage of some of these guys. That would be really cool. I do think that Geminis do have a decent shot. I honestly think this archetype is going to be either one of these three. Flip, Gemini, or Spirit, if I had to guess. I think it's going to be one of those three. I would personally want Flip the most, but I understand Gemini. I do still want Gemini to get support at some point. And hopefully that comes, you know, sooner than later. Maybe really soon. Power of the Elements soon. But we will obviously see where Konami goes with that. But that's going to do it from here today, guys. I think we all agree that Geminis deserve the support. Hopefully they get it, and hopefully it's worthwhile, and we'll see. We'll just have to wait and see. But I'm out of here. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Subscribe if you haven't, and Spirits next. Woo.